It's hard for us to imagine, I think, in the time that we live in, how difficult it was for women to get a toehold in a lot of things.
25 years ago, people would have said our first preference would be a man. That's not true today.
I just feel so privileged and fortunate that I grew up at a time when opportunities for women were changing. And today, I think young women can find work in any business or profession they choose. And what a blessing that is.
It takes courage, vision, and poise to fight adversity. Arizona women have many leading ladies to thank for opening doors, breaking boundaries, and cracking the glass ceiling.
Arizona in particular, as a western state, all the western states valued their women, and pioneer women were very strong. And I don't think that's changed.
Pioneers paved the way for women's suffrage 21 years before Arizona became a state. Women like Josephine Hughes, co-founder of the Arizona Daily Star, and Frances Munns took the issue to the territorial legislature, where it failed in 1906.
And the governor vetoed it, and then the women that were standing there watching the legislature, when they heard that the governor had vetoed it, they looked down there and they saw all these men clapping on both these men that had supposedly supported this. They were very upset, as you can imagine. So they decided to play hardball.
Western women were persistent in fighting for their right to vote. Arizona women won the battle soon after Arizona became a state in 1912.
We were about, I think, the 7th or 8th state. I think the first one was Wyoming in 1869, but it was the West where women got the vote. So once they started getting the vote here, like there were a couple in 1910, a couple in 1912, it gave a lot of hope to the women on the East Coast because they were starting to see all of these Western states where women were getting the vote. So I think it gave a lot of impetus to the national organization to say, yes, look, women are getting the vote. And they were worried that women wouldn't go out and vote, and they certainly did. And then in 1914, our very first election to the legislature, we had 2 women legislators, Rachel Berry and Frances Munns, were both elected to the legislature. So Arizona has always had a number of women in the legislature, so I think we've been very progressive in that way since we got the vote.
I'm doing what I like to do, and I really feel I'm of service to my constituents.
One of the most notable women in Arizona's government is also the longest-serving state legislator. Polly Rosenbaum entered the legislature in 1949 after her husband, William George Rosenbaum, passed away. She worked in the House of Representatives for 46 years and didn't retire until she was 99 years old.
Polly did a lot in the legislature. She first got a seat in the legislature because her husband had died, and then she was voted in. I think she served almost 50 years from Gila County, so she was there a very long time. She was very active in things that had anything to do with education.
Rosenbaum was a role model to Senate Minority Leader Marcia Arsberger.
She had to stand against the wall when she went to the legislature because she was a woman. So they had their meetings in these little tiny meeting rooms, and they didn't know why this woman should be there, so she had to stand against the wall and wasn't expected not to speak. So she had lots of stories to tell how that changed and how she changed that. And in all the years I saw her in the legislature, which was 10, 15 years, believe me, when Polly Rosenbaum spoke, everybody quieted down and made sure that she got to speak.
Rosenbaum's boundless energy captured everyone's attention.
When I was in college, I remember the Dean of Women was talking to them one time, and she said, have a purpose in your walk. Don't just stroll along as if you had no aim in life.
She would never take the elevator, even when she was like 100 years old. She'd zip up and down the stairs in the old state capitol, and everybody would be huffing and puffing behind her.
Rose Mofford worked in Arizona's government even longer than Polly Rosenbaum. Known for her sense of humor and softball skills, Mofford became Arizona's first female governor in 1988 after the impeachment of Governor Evan Mecham. She was Secretary of State before becoming governor. Her career in public service spanned more than 50 years, and since Mofford, 2 other women have gone on to govern Arizona. Arizona is also home to leading ladies in the courtroom.
Arizona, indeed, has a tradition of women on the bench. The first woman to become a state Supreme Court Chief Justice was an Arizona woman, Lorna Lockwood.
You know, Lorna Lockwood is a wonderful story. When she graduated from the University of Arizona Law School as the only woman, of course she couldn't get a job as a lawyer. That just wasn't available. So she got a job as a secretary and then worked in her father's office.
I would get together maybe once a month or so with the women lawyers who were, in fact, in the Phoenix area. And if she could, Justice Lorna Lockwood would come and join us for lunch. And we often would sit around one small round table in the Arizona Club and have lunch. There were so few of us that we could do that. It was amazing.
At that time, the Arizona Supreme Court justices served just a one term as Chief Justice, so it rotated every year. And it was, I think, in 1965 that she became Chief Justice. And there was no other woman in the United States who had ever served as Chief Justice. Arizona had the first. And she served another term later as Chief Justice and then retired from the court in 1975.
One Arizona cowgirl has worked not only in all three branches of state government, but has also served on the highest court in the nation.
I think the main thing that happened as a result of my life and experience was when President Reagan decided to put a woman on the U.S. Supreme Court in the highest position that any woman in this country had achieved. And that opened doors for women all across this country immediately. And it opened doors for women worldwide, actually. It received an enormous amount of attention worldwide. And all of a sudden, opportunities started to emerge for women in every state and around the globe.
We saw the reaction from all around the country to her being appointed, and it was just overwhelmingly positive. She got, I mean, bags and bags of letters would come to the office every day.
Sandra Day O'Connor is famous for being the first woman appointed to the United States Supreme Court, but her other first is lesser known. Nancy Pelosi may be the first female Speaker of the House, but O'Connor was the first woman to hold a leadership position in any state legislature.
There had been no woman legislative leader in any post across the country. And it was such a surprise to me when my colleagues voted in a closed ballot to select me as the majority leader. I was shocked.
Young women may be shocked to hear the struggles women faced only decades ago.
When I went to college, it's a state university, and they said, what kind of major do you want? And I said, I'd like to be a math major. And they said, you can't do that, you're a woman.
I graduated from law school at Stanford Law School in Palo Alto, California. And the placement board had all these notices asking Stanford law graduates to call the law firm for an interview about a job, saying that they would be very interested in hiring a Stanford law graduate. And I called the law firms, and not one of them would talk to me. Wouldn't even talk to me. They said, well, you're a woman. We don't hire women lawyers.
Today, Arizona has a female governor, a woman chief justice, and many leading ladies in the legislature.
At least half of our population are women, and they have as much talent as men. So it's great that we don't waste that talent anymore.